And there are so many people, men specifically, who are in the comments saying, well, this is what you signed up for. Y'all wanted to be equal, right? Well, this happens to NBA players all the time, and we don't say anything. That's the problem. Like, this happens to men all the time, but we don't say anything. And we're criticizing Angel for coming out as a woman saying, hey, this isn't fair. Like, I should not be getting all this negativity directly sent to me when I've done nothing to deserve it. And the response should not be, oh, well, it's happening to the men, so get used to it, because that's how it is. What's up, Evolvers, and welcome to another episode of Evolving with Edgar. I'm your host, Edgar Martin Jr., and I'm glad to be back. I hope you guys have been having a great week so far. Today is Thursday, so I hope your Monday through Wednesday has been well so far leading up to this recording. I know we're approaching the end of the week. I know for me, it's been a pretty okay week. It hasn't been nothing too crazy. Work and school have been fine. I've actually been taking care of Denisha recently. She's not feeling well. She's been under the weather majority of the week. So just helping her, get back healthy and stuff. So it's been okay, nothing too crazy. But I hope you guys have had a great week. But today's topic for discussion today is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. For those of you who didn't know, I know June is mostly recognized for Pride Month, so we definitely want to, show love to the LGBTQIA plus community. But not today, but this month is also Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, and I want to spend time today for this episode talking about some of the issues men face when it comes to their mental health, and also try to talk about ways we can improve it, not just for people individually, but from a community aspect as well. So I just want to go over some statistics with you guys. I got these statistics from mentalhealthamerica.org. So I'll be sure and put the actual website name in the notes below so you guys can go to that website and see the statistics for yourself, for future purposes, in case there's anybody dealing with mental health issues that you want to try to have an impact on. So I have four categories that I want to cover with you guys today: depression, anxiety, bipolarness, and psychosis and schizophrenia. And suicide. So actually five areas. But just starting off with depression. So just to give off a couple of notes, and I don't want this episode to be a downer, but I do feel like these are statistics and these are facts that everyone should know when dealing with men in their lives, whether it's your spouse, whether it's a family member, or just a friend or a coworker that you may notice is always kind of down, or even if they're one of the people that are always smiling, you never know what people are dealing with. So just to go over some facts about depression, based on Mental Health of America, around 6 million males are affected per year by depression in the United States, and most often go undiagnosed. So most of the time, men do deal with depression. We just aren't as vocal about it as women or children, really. So I think that's important to know, because like I said before, like I said this actually in my vlog that I did when I went to Hot Pilates. Be sure to check that out. But one of the health tips that I learned after 25 is that you have to educate yourself on how to be healthy, and you have to find ways to improve your health. And part of that is mentally understanding that you need to improve your mental health on all aspects. And that's how you feel, that's how you interact with others. And it goes to going to the doctor and just actually checking on those things. So the fact that most of the 6 million males who are affected by depression go undiagnosed, that means if we do go to the doctor, we're not bringing it up at all. So I feel like that was a very important thing to note. And men are more likely to report fatigue, irritability, loss of interest in hobbies, rather than sadness or worthlessness. So if we do get asked how we're feeling, or if we have been down recently and people ask, how are you? Or How have you been lately? Like, I noticed you just haven't been in the best mood. Oftentimes, and I know I do this a lot too. Men, we usually deflect. We either just say we're tired, or if we are pissed off, we just try to say it's not that big of a deal, or we're just aggravated with one specific thing when there could be an array of things that are bothering us. So usually men deflect with stuff like that. So try to ask a little bit deeper how people are doing when you ask that question. If you genuinely care. If you don't genuinely care when you ask the question, you kind of need to be careful with how you just let people walk off on how they answer, because a lot of times people are like, I'm all right, or I'm straight, and then they just go on about their day. And you, as the person who asked the question, you don't even really care to dig deeper because you feel like, hey, I did my job. I asked how you were. You didn't really say anything. When sometimes trying to get that deeper answer could work. Sometimes it may not, but you never know. You may come across one person one day and they may actually say, wow, like this person really does care how I'm doing. This may be my opportunity to actually vent for a moment or get some advice. So I thought that was important when it comes to depression. Also, like I've talked about it plenty of times before, how I've had my episodes of depression, and I still do every now and then. And it's such an important thing. And I'm glad I have Denisha. I'm glad I have parents who are involved with me emotionally and just always check on me, as well as my siblings and some of my friends. So I have a community of people around me who always check and make sure I'm fine, but I know there are so many men who don't. So this is really a shout out to the men who are dealing with depression on a frequent basis, that you're not alone. Like, you're not the only person dealing with that. And there are ways to get through it, whether it be going to counseling or just talking to your girlfriend or your wife, or, hanging out with your guy friends and actually venting to them. And I know a lot of times it may be awkward, but on a previous episode I had, I think it was episode 3, it was called I Love You, Bro. It was an episode where I talked about how men don't really even say I love you to each other. So on top of learning how to say I love you to your male friends, learn to vent to them, learn to confide in them and trust them with the information you give them. I know a lot of times it could be hard because you may run into people who may, misuse that trust, but you have to kind of take that risk if you want to be able to get a lot of that weight off of your shoulders. So those were just some insights from me personally on how I know how to get through depression at times. There are some I'm just completely out of it mentally and emotionally, and I have to pray and I have to get closer with God and just really get back on track. I could be off track for like a week or two, and then I could be on track for like a month or so, and then derail again. Like it's all a process. But I'm so much better than what I used to be. There was a time, I've said this numerous times. There was a time where every day it was just a battle for me mentally, and even the people who loved and cared about me, like they would ask a few times, and I wouldn't open up, because there came a point where I felt like I was becoming a burden to people, and I felt like I was just dumping too much information on them, which I was at times. But once I learned how to deal with it myself, once I learned how to turn my issues to God and pray and really trust him through the process, it became easier to vent to people, because I wasn't necessarily trauma dumping, but I was letting people know my situations, and more so asking for advice than just giving problem, and not accepting a solution. So anyone who deals with depression, just know that, like I said, you are not alone. There are ways to get through it. And I'm always here. That's what the evolvers are for. That's what this community is going to be based on: personal growth and development. We're all here to help each other. You guys for me, just as much me for you. So that was just some stuff I wanted to tackle with depression. Next is anxiety. So some statistics I saw about anxiety are approximately 19.1 million American adults ages 18 to 54 have an anxiety disorder, and over 3 million men have a panic disorder. And this really stuck out to me because I thought I was one of very few people who dealt with this, but there are times where if I'm really nervous in a situation or I'm just mentally overloaded, I begin to get frantic because I'm just so frustrated. I think it comes from frustration more so than fear. So I'm not necessarily panicking like I'm scared of something. I'm panicking because I just have so many thoughts rushing through my head at one time. And with those thoughts comes a level of aggression and panic because I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, it seems like every time I take two steps forward, I take three back, and that anxiety starts to kick in. Granted, there's been times where I've been able to push through it, but there's been times where it just got the best of me and I let the quote unquote panic attack, so to say, just make me completely shut down. So be careful. If you're guys, for the guys out there, be careful of how you deal with situations that aren't going your way. Not everything is going to be a great day. Today, for example, today I thought was actually going to be smooth. Today was set up to be a very busy day, but I got through a lot of my shit pretty smooth today. But then as I got closer to the end, there were like one or two things where I almost threw my hands up and said, "Of course, here we go. As soon as shit starts looking good, something has to go left." But I I just didn't lose my cool. I didn't let anxiety get to me. I didn't let myself get overloaded with I didn't have a stimulus overload or anything like that. I just got my work done, continue with the plan that I had, and everything is going how it's supposed to go now. I'm getting this episode recorded for you guys, which was the main thing I wanted to make sure I did today. So be careful when it comes to anxiety and panic attacks. Like, just really try to restrain yourself, take a deep breath, calm down, and assess your situation. That's something that a lot of people tell me when it comes to dealing with stuff. Now, granted, there are some situations where I'm probably a little too calm, but most of the time, there are situations where I'm maybe with multiple people and everybody may be on 10, but I'm one of the people where I'm assessing the situation, I'm calm, and I'm really trying to see what's in front of me. And I feel like that's the best way to go throughout even your personal struggles. And I feel like that's where I could be better personally with going through my struggles, because when it comes to public situations or situations involving other people, I do it very well. But then when it comes to my own stuff, I have no idea how to get through it. So that's just some stuff on anxiety that I wanted to cover with you guys. Next is bipolarness. So out of 2.3 million Americans affected by bipolar disorder, men and women are equal in development of bipolar disorder, but the onset for men are between ages 16 to 25 years old. And I instantly thought of Kanye West when I thought of this. Everybody knows Kanye has been very vocal about his bipolarness. And he's even said that it started affecting him years ago. Like, I know a lot of times we feel like I think maybe around the slavery was a choice comment that he made around that time. That's when we really started seeing, like, okay, Kanye, one minute he says this, and then the next minute he says that. So we started noticing the bipolarness with him then, but he's been vocal about how it's been affecting him even before that. I think it just didn't hit the magnitude that it did to where the world notices it so much until that around that time. I want to say, when did he say that? That had to be, of course it was while Trump was president, so it had to be post 2016, 2017. But it was around that time that the world really started seeing the effects of bipolar disorder through the lens of Kanye West. And I know a lot of times people joke about bipolar disorder. You hear so many people say, "Oh, I'm bipolar," or "Don't mess with me, like I'm bipolar," or people will literally base it on their what you call it people are based on astrology, on their zodiac signs. Like, people will say, like Gemini's, for example. I think Gemini's get the bipolar. They get that narrative a lot because I guess with their zodiac sign, they're like two different faces or whatever or something like that. But all jokes aside, like, bipolarness is nothing to joke about. The fact that some people really are diagnosed with that, and one minute they could be totally fine, the next minute they're on like a train this way that makes you say, what the F is going on? Like, so I think that just needs to be taken a lot more seriously. I know we joke about it, and every now and then a joke is okay, but the underlying issue of how serious bipolar disorder is and how much it affects young men, like I said, ages 16 to 25, that's when most men start seeing signs of bipolar disorder. So I think that's something to really take note of. Next is psychosis and schizophrenia. Don't really know much information about this, but just the statistics that I've seen, 90% of people diagnosed in America with schizophrenia by age 30 are men. Let me say that again. 90% of men by age 30 who are diagnosed with schizophrenia are in the United States. Like that's crazy. The other 10%, I'm of course assuming, are women, but and 3.5 million men in the US are diagnosed with schizophrenia. So I think that's just huge. We've seen movies before, like what's that one movie? It's a great movie. Split. The movie Split. He has schizophrenia where he has like I don't even know if they call it schizophrenia, but it's some type of version of that. He had like 30 different personalities in his body. And again, this falls from the stem of mental health, of the different issues that men deal with in the back of their minds, subconsciously and consciously, to where talking to yourself goes to the extreme with schizophrenia. So I just wanted to talk about that as well. Like I said, I don't really have any information outside of the facts that I wrote down about that. But I did feel like that was something pretty interesting to note for you guys. And the last part is suicide. So this is, of course, is the realest issue that I really want to talk about. Suicide is the seventh leading cause of death for men in the United States. Four times as many men as women die by suicide in the United States. And what was another one? Gay and bisexual men are more likely to develop mental health disorders than heterosexual men, and are at an increased risk for suicides, especially before age 25. So men are already four times more likely to commit suicide than women in the United States. And since it's Pride Month, I definitely thought it was important to note that gay and bisexual men, especially before the age of 25, deal with suicidal thoughts or actual committing suicide, in the United States. So I really feel like that's important. I know how black men, especially we just shrug off mental health awareness like a lot in our community, especially those of us who grow up in lower income situations. Like, we just don't really grow up in environments where mental health is appreciated or even pushed for real. When it comes to us, like, there's this thing where, like, the girls are taken care of, we care about the girls emotionally, but with the boys we're often raised to be tough. Like, you're sad for no reason, or you're just crying for nothing. And then sometimes there's some truth to that, but then sometimes it's like, no, we really should see how he's doing. Like, we really should see why he's upset. We really should see why he's crying, or what pissed him off today. And that's, you never realize how much that translates into men as they get older, because we are the shoulders that our families stand on a lot of times when it comes to our households. Like, imagine you have a family, or picture your own family, for example, and you got the dad, you got the mom, and you got the kids. Women love talking about their day. They will literally, as soon as their work day is over, they talk about their day as if it didn't just happen. And with men, we're kind of like, hey, our work day just ended. We really don't want to talk about it. And it could have pissed us off. There could have been something at work that truly made us upset, made us feel unappreciated, made us feel worthless, but we just don't care to talk about it. And that's something that I have to give credit to women for. Even if we complain about it, or even if we joke about, women just love talking all the time. It's like, no, like, that's actually a skill. Being able to actually talk about what pissed you off, no matter if it just happened or if it happened 3 hours ago, being able to talk about it is a skill that we as men, we just, one, don't feel like it's worth doing, because we know how it can be interpreted sometimes if men quote unquote complain. Nobody, and it's a sad truth, but nobody really wants to hear men complain because we have to be problem solvers, not problem givers. Like, we can't sit here and list a bunch of problems. We have to have a solution to the list of problems. So that is one issue with that isn't really in our control a lot of times, because I hear so many stories from men of how they try to say what's bothering them, or they try to say how their feelings got hurt, and it's kind of treated with a shrug shoulder mentality a lot of times. But I really do think when it comes to the women in your life, understanding how to vent to those women and understand that you have to be able to trust somebody. And even if it's just a friend that you call after work, or a friend that you get on a FaceTime call with or something, I feel like that's important. But back to the example, like, mom comes home, she says how her day is, you got to hear how the kids' day is and everything. But how often is dad asked how his day is? Like, to the extent that mom is asked or the kids are asked. It's like, hey, my day was good, or it was all right, or it was a rough day. And then it kind of ends at that. But you have to also treat dad with the same level of care mentally as you do mom and the kids. Like, you just never know how he got pissed off at work and how that will just affect how he is when he gets home. Not saying it's an excuse for how he acts when he gets home, but it plays a part into it, and it never hurts to try and deep dive into that. And if you never, as a man, if you never want to talk about what's going on with you with the people around you who care and are trying to talk to you, that's when you need to make it a real effort to get professional help and seek therapy. Like, whether it's at a clinic or whether you may have the money to actually have a therapist. Like, if you have the resources to do that, by all means do it. But if you don't, and you have to go to like a clinic or somewhere to get like free therapy sessions, like, finding someone to vent to is very helpful. For example, BetterHelp. Like, and this video is not sponsored by BetterHelp at all, but I hear so many people talk about BetterHelp as the new way to experience therapy for those who may not have the funds to get a therapist. And the way you can do it over the phone or over a video call, like, or setting up sessions through text or whatever. I hear so many recommendations about BetterHelp, to where I felt like it was just necessary to mention it in this video. Like I said, this video isn't sponsored by BetterHelp, and I don't use it, but I listen to enough people and I see enough postings of it by people I trust and people I listen to on a daily, to where I feel comfortable telling it to you guys. So I just feel all of these things that I covered today, from depression, anxiety, bipolarness, psychosis and schizophrenia, and suicide, these 5 topics are very important to talk about in the community when it comes to boys and men. Like I said, I did not want this episode to be a downer, but I did want it to be kind of like a PSA for the rest of this month. And even when it's not, June, like, check on your guy friends, check on your husbands, check on your boyfriends, check on your friends, check on your mentees, or if you have a male mentor, check on him. Like, check on all of these men in your lives, because we go through stuff just the same as women and children do. Do we have to have a little bit more toughness with how we deal with it? Absolutely, because we're men at the end of the day. And we have to carry the burden of putting our emotions to the side a little bit more than others to get the job done at the end of the day, to make sure everyone else is taken care of at the end of the day. But let those small moments come where you do ask how we are doing, when you do try to do something nice for us, just to just for the sake of doing it, and I feel that'll go a long way into improving mental health with men, at least in the United States, and especially for my black men in our communities. And something that I wanted to talk about that I've seen recently on social media is so if you haven't been following sports at all, the WNBA is more popular than it's ever been. I think this is their 28th season, if I'm not mistaken. So they're less than 30 years old, but this is the most popular they have ever been. And with that popularity and with all the fame and with all the success and the positive media, There's starting to become an equal level of hate and negative media that I don't think any of us were expecting, really, at least not so soon. But I think the women are having a hard time adjusting to it. But the only reason I say that is because there is a flaw in here with how men who are sports lovers are treating this situation. Angel Reese came out and has spoken about multiple times on how she's being treated unfairly by certain fans on social media, how she's being called out of her name with racial slurs or just derogatory words, and even being her and her teammates are even being rushed up on by fans, with cameras in their face saying negative things when they get off the bus going into arenas. And there are so many people, men specifically, who are in the comments saying, well, this is what you signed up for. Y'all wanted to be equal, right? Well, this happens to NBA players all the time, and we don't say anything. That's the problem. Like, this happens to men all the time, but we don't say anything. And we're criticizing Angel for coming out as a woman saying, hey, this isn't fair. Like, I should not be getting all this negativity directly sent to me when I've done nothing to deserve it. And the response should not be, oh, well, it's happening to the men, so get used to it because that's how it is. No. Do you have to understand that as a celebrity or as a prominent figure, you have to understand, yes, there's going to be just as much hate as love that will come your way. But that does not mean you should accept it. That does not mean that it should be the norm. And you have to understand that just because something is happening to men and we're not saying anything about it doesn't mean women will just let the same shit slide. Like, you can't have it both ways. You can't have the men getting treated misfairly, but then expect the women to just brush it off like the men do. It's like, no, like, they're emotional beings. Like, women are a lot more in tune with their emotions than men, and they're willing to not settle for bullshit a lot more than men will most of the time. And I think we could take a page out of Angel's book with this, of understanding, no, like, there should be more NBA players coming out. Like, it shouldn't take a situation like with Kyrie when Stephen A was just completely digging into his character as a human being. It shouldn't go to that extent for us to really say, hey, there needs to be a line drawn when it comes to, the level of criticism and disrespect that athletes or celebrities get. Like, I remember a few years ago, there was a racial slur spray painted on LeBron's property before, what finals was that? I don't even remember what finals it was, but it was pre-COVID. It was pre-COVID when LeBron was going to the finals and somebody spray painted a racial slur or something like that on his property. And we treated it pretty serious for like maybe a week, but then things just kind of went to normal after that. And we just didn't raise so much awareness like how we're doing with the women. Not saying we shouldn't be, but it just didn't happen. And that was a big moment. And it's LeBron James. Like, he's the biggest basketball star on the planet. He's one of the most famous people on the planet. But with women, there's a lot more care. There's a lot more worry. There's a lot more cause to action. And I just feel like we should start doing the same with men. But men, we have to be accountable, and we have to understand, until we feel like we deserve that and start treating ourselves like that, we can't expect the women to. And we can't look at women going through disrespect and think it's okay just because we disrespect ourselves, whether it's on social media or in person. So I just felt like that was really important to say. I really feel like it definitely touched today's lesson with what I wanted to talk to you guys about with mental health, about how we really just got to make sure the men in our lives feel valued, feel appreciated, feel loved, and feel wanted. And I don't feel like there's anything wrong with that. Like, if you're a soft spoken, like, kind guy, like, you shouldn't get taken advantage of or treated any differently than the most macho guy that walks in the room, because you never know what people are dealing with. You never know what people's breaking point is. And I feel like that's definitely something to take note of as the suicides rates rise up in the US, as mental health rises, as people who go undiagnosed rise. I hope we start diagnosing ourselves. I hope we start just treating it a lot more seriously, and treating ourselves better with self-care, so we can understand how to help other people. So that was what I wanted to talk to you guys about with today. It's a serious episode, but I hope you were able to take some type of positivity out of this. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Evolving with Edgar, we're on the road to 50 subscribers right now. I think I got like 32, 33 right now. So please hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Please help get me to 50 subscribers so we can set the road to the next milestone. But until then, remember, to evolve is to grow. And I can't wait to see what your next phase is. See you next time.